Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Sorry to Bother You. And this is one of those films where it is kind of hard to talk about the plot without getting into spoilers, but without really getting into anything, essentially what this film is about is basically we center on a weird version of Oakland. Like, it's the current version of Oakland, except that it's just very absurd and there's just something a little bit off about it. But basically, our main character is Cassius Green. He is kind of like this lowlife who he is really trying to search for a job because his uncle, his house is getting closed on and he has to pay him the rent within 5 months, and basically if he doesn't pay him that rent, he's going to send him over to this place called, he's going to send him over to this other sort of working place that he doesn't really want to go to. So he ends up as a telemarketer, but he is really not doing well at all, unfortunately. He can't seem to get any sort of customers, so one of his employees basically gives him the idea to start using his white voice, and once he does that, this starts to curry a lot more favor from people, and that's really all I'm gonna say. So, Sorry to Bother You, I was absolutely hyped for this movie. I mean, everything about this film looked like something I was going to eat up. I heard so many reports that this was like the Swiss Army Man or the Brigsby Bear of this year, and if you guys don't know, I absolutely love both those films, and actually in preparation for this film, I actually rewatched both of those movies with some of my friends, and I love them just as much as I do now. Swiss Army Man might actually be my second favorite film of 2016 now. I think Moonlight has actually gotten knocked down a peg, but that's really irrelevant to this. But those two films are just so absurd and out there, but yet they have such great social commentary and a lot of really great metaphors and things like that, and just stuff that I really eat up. And Sorry to Bother You looked like that's exactly what it was going to be, and that's absolutely the case. This is a very, very strange film. Honestly, probably much stranger than the two films I just mentioned, but it is also a brilliant satire about workplace and about America as a whole and things like that. But we're just getting right now, starting off with the cast. And that was something I was definitely very excited about. I think this is honestly one of the best casts of the entire year. Everyone here is so great, and everyone really does deliver. But without a doubt, the standout in this movie is Lakeith Stanfield as Cassius Green, who I thought was phenomenal in this role. Now, I've seen him in things before, like Atlanta, Get Out, but this is probably the best performance I've seen from him. I think he does an incredible job in this film. What I really love about someone like Cassius is that he doesn't really go against, he doesn't really conform with what society wants him to. This isn't someone who is in a gang. This isn't someone who has all these tattoos and he has this, he has a very typical way of speaking in the way that, we tend to think that Black Americans do. Like, he doesn't talk like that, and he presents himself in a much different way. He's very much, like I said, sort of an outcast, and it's him really going through this incredible transformation that I really did love seeing. As the film goes on, he starts to get more and more confident, and this really does start to hurt him along the way, and I really did love what Stanfield did here, particularly in the third act of the movie. Just the way he would react to things, it felt so real, and many times, Cash is basically the audience. Like, the things that we find out, the way he reacts to it, yeah, that's how we're reacting, and I think he just did an incredible job in this film. The places his character goes, I was not expecting, and I think after this film, he has definitely solidified himself as one of the best leading men. Maybe not one of the best leading men, but definitely a very promising leading man. I really do want to see him get more roles after this film because he's really impressed me thus far, but even more so in this film. He was phenomenal here. And then Tessa Thompson as well as Detroit. No surprise here, she does continue her streak, and I really liked her character. What's really great about Detroit is that she's someone the audience I can see hating, because she is against pretty much every single thing that Cash is doing. She's telling him this is going to ruin his life, when he starts to, like I said, get more recognition, he starts to gain more attention from his bosses, and they want to promote him. She's very on the fence about it, and their relationship really is kind of like the heart of this movie, where they really do end up going with it. And even in parts where the movie gets really crazy, this really does keep the movie grounded. But she also has a side thing going on, which I'm not really going to get into, but I really did love where they took her character. She has some scenes in this film, one scene in particular that I'm truly never going to forget, and I think she really did an incredible job here. I thought their chemistry felt so natural, and I really do want to see them work together again, because I thought they were both very good here. But someone I really have to credit in this movie is Armie Hammer as Steve Lift, who, in my opinion, gives the best performance of his career here. I mean, this character is just so insane. He is so obsessed with Cash, basically to the point of absurdity, but not in the sense where he admires him as an individual and that he really wants to be like him. No, he is 100% using Cash as a product, and that's really how he respects him. He respects his brand. He respects, you know, not the person that Cash has become, but he respects that the brand that he has. And where they end up going with his character is truly fucked up. And definitely, he's someone that a lot of people are going to hate, but you kind of love to hate him. Like, he's so maniacal, and he has so much meaty scenes, and he really does do a great job. And while he's not in this movie a lot, he really does leave a big impression on you, and I think he did an incredible job here. I know Armie Hammer's really been struggling since Lone Ranger, but I think this film is really going to put him out of that stint, because it's not like he hasn't had good roles, but I think this is going to be the first film that really does get him that recognition, and I'm really hoping that he does more stuff after this movie, because he really did an incredible job here, I have to say. Then the rest of the cast here really does do a great job. Stephen Yeun was not expecting to be in here a lot, but he really did a pretty great job here. I really did like his role in the film. I also really liked Jermaine Fowler, I think is how I pronounce his name. He basically is Cash's best friend, who initially gets him the job in the first place, and I really did love where they ended up going with his character. Their friendship, similar to him in Detroit, is kind of like the heart of this movie, and I really enjoyed him here. Omari Hardwick in this movie, such a good role. I mean, this guy, again, he's so mysterious to the point where his name is literally censored. Like, his name is Mr. Censored. We don't know what his last name is, and frankly, it doesn't really matter, because he just leaves this huge impression on you. You get the sense that this is someone who cares so much about the corporate side of things that he doesn't really care about the individual, and he just keeps... He's the one who really keeps putting Cash further down the rabbit hole, and I think he really did a fantastic job in this film. Danny Glover's really good here. Terry Crews, I mean, really everyone absolutely kills it. Even the white voice, like David Cross, really was great. Patton, Oswalt, everyone did a fantastic job here. Very impressed with this cast overall, and I really couldn't ask for anything better. I think everyone really did deliver here in the way I wanted them to. So now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that was definitely something I was very excited for. And similar to Swiss Army Man and Brigsby Bear, this is coming from a director that I really did not recognize. However, dissimilar to those films, this is in fact his directorial debut. And Boots Riley, I mean, this has to be one of the most ambitious directorial debuts I think I've ever seen. Just the sheer brilliance of what he's able to do in this film doesn't usually come from this kind of director. Usually this comes from someone who's much more seasoned and someone who's much more recognized, but that's not at all who Boots Riley is. This isn't a guy that anyone knew. I mean, this guy is still a newcomer, and after this movie, I think he's already solidified himself as a true mastercraft in Hollywood. I mean, what he's able to do with this movie is incredible. He is somehow able to combine really absurd comedy with some really socially relevant political commentary and just blend it in seamlessly. Every point in this movie where you're laughing, the characters will say something that's equally as disturbing, and I think he just blended that very well here. And again, this is not coming from a director that is very well known, and the fact that already this early in his career he's able to do these things is incredibly impressive, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do from here on out, because he absolutely blew me away when it came to the directing, and I really love what he did there. I mean, the movie had me simultaneously in stitches, but it also had me with my jaw on the floor. That's really how well this film is directed. The two tones just blend so seamlessly, better than most films of its kind do, and I think he just did a really great job. I'm very excited to see what he does next after this film, but same with the writing. I think the writing in this movie is so... Again, it's so incredibly ambitious, and I just can't believe that Boots Riley actually went there. Most directors at this point, they would try to play it safe. You know, they'd save the more risky things for their future films, and Riley, he just gets right into it. Like, he's not afraid to really do some bold things with this movie, and I really love what he did in terms of the writing. I think the screenplay here is so well done, which, again, I'd really love to say a lot about, but I don't really want to get into it too much, because the plot of this movie isn't really what you think it is. Yes, the white voice is a part of it, but essentially this movie is trying to be like a workplace comedy, and I think it does work very well in that. But it's much more than that, too. It's really a social satire on just companies in general, and sort of this notion that, you know, all managers and, you know, sort of like bosses within certain, you know, corporations don't really give a shit about their workers, and they pretty much treat all of them as just another cog in the system, and the true carelessness that they have for them, and I think it's just very well exhibited in this film. And again, I'm going to get into in spoilers and things like that, but I think it's very well done. I really love what Boots Riley's trying to say there, and I think his social commentary is just so on point in this movie. And I'm someone who does work in a restaurant. Now, yes, it's different from telemarketing, but there were some things in this movie that hit pretty close to home. For example, there's an uprising going on in this movie with between three characters because they don't feel like they're getting paid enough, and they really want to do something about it. And this was very relatable to me. I mean, where I work, you know, pretty much on a daily basis, I hear people talking about, you know, we're not getting paid enough, and, you know, we need to do something about this, and that it's ridiculous that they don't pay us enough. So yeah, that was something that very much did strike a chord with me. Maybe not as drastic as the characters in this film, because the characters in this film, you know, really are not living that well. They're very much, you know, they're not really financially stable, and they really just, this job is pretty much, you know, the only thing that they have, and I think this film portrays it very well. I really did love that social commentary, but it also is saying a lot about society in general. It's hard to really wrap my head around what this film is like. Like, a lot of people have told me compare this film to something. There's really only two things I can see myself comparing to, neither of which I've seen. This is really just verbatim from things I've heard from other people. Idiocracy and also Office Space. Idiocracy in the sense that the film really does kind of lampoon just how dumb America really is and how easily we will fall for things. Like, if something looks appealing to us, we'll just take it at face value and not really do any research about it or anything. And this film very much does get into that. I'm not going to explain why, because again, it would be getting into spoilers, but there's this fantastic running joke in the film involving something that has to do with, you know, commercializing something and basically exploiting something that really isn't funny at all, but we poke fun at it because it's just the best thing, it's just the easiest way to do it, and we don't really take a second look at it, and we don't really pay any, you know, we pay it no mind pretty much, and I think this film very much does shed light on that very well. There's also a very good message just about how America, you know, again, we're just kind of dumb, and we are. I mean, there's a lot of things that the characters do here, and it's like, you dumbass, like, why would you do that? And I think there's a lot of moments in this movie that are very much like that, and I really did enjoy it, but it also focuses on the idea of greed, how everyone wants money, and anything that's handed to them for money, they'll just do it, you know, someone like Cash is someone who, he goes from rags to riches, like, in a second, and constantly money is just being offered to him, and he doesn't really think about the true consequences of what he's doing, and I really did love that with his character. Presented this really great character flaw that I really loved, but it also doesn't make Cash unlikable because there's always a good reason for this. The main reason he's doing this, of course, is to pay off his uncle's debts, and I really did enjoy where they ended up going with him. I thought it was, again, a very good character flaw for him, and it worked very well, I have to say. Now, one movie that I'm sure this film is going to be drawing comparisons to is, in fact, Get Out. And yeah, I do think that is a fair comparison, similar to Get Out. It deals with racism, not in a way you would expect. And that's especially one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where basically it involves Armie Hammer forcing Cash to rap, and it does not necessarily go the way you think. And that's something I really did love about this film. It's constantly trying to show you how we stereotype people and put labels on them and assort people with various characteristics. And without really spoiling anything, Cash does not really fit that billing. And I just really did love the way the film got into it. And like I said, yes, it's very similar to Get Out, but it's so weird and out there that it kind of normalizes Get Out. I know it's pretty crazy to think, but that's really how this film deals with racism in just a very unique way that I just don't really think I've ever seen before. And it's probably one of my favorite parts of this entire film, honestly. Really, my only complaints with this movie, which it is very hard to find some, is that some of the things that happen in this film, they're so radical and so crazy that I'm not 100% sure they all worked, and that's mainly because Boots Riley, he is an inexperienced director, and you do kind of get that sense in, like, the story he's trying to tell, because it's big. It's definitely very big, and it's got a lot of ideas. It's just, I don't know if they all were as fleshed out as they could have been. There are a few characters that I wouldn't say are underused, because the characters that are in this movie, they get enough time. Like, Terry Crews is not in this movie a lot, but I did think he had enough, enough overall. Like, he had enough in there for me to care about his character, for me to feel satisfied overall. They could have given him a little bit more to do, though, and I felt like, especially the fact that he's, like, 5th on the poster, and in the cast list, I thought he was going to have a little more to do. He really doesn't. He's really only in, like, 2 or 3 scenes of the film. I could be wrong on a second watch. Maybe he's in it more, but from what I saw this first time around, he's really only in like 2 or 3 scenes. So again, for me, it was enough of what they gave him, but I do think he could have had just a little bit more in there. Also, there is one plot point involving Tessa Thompson's character and this thing that happens to her, and they make it seem like it's going to be a big deal, and it honestly ends up being kind of inconsequential. Like, it's not like they don't end it, because they do end it. It just didn't really feel like it was as big as a deal as the film really made it out to be, and I think they could have done a lot more with it. Visually, on the other hand, though, this film is a masterpiece. I mean, the visuals in this movie are incredible. They really did go all out, going as far as to have people literally lift a desk. So Stanfield, when the desk falls, like, if you guys have seen the trailer, there's that scene where the desk falls, and while he's trying to call up everyone, he is somehow transported into their rooms. Like, he imagines, like, talking to them over the phone, so we see, like, what they're doing in that given moment. That was real. Like, that was no stunt. There were actually people lifting those desks, and I think that alone is very impressive. I really did love that. I've never really heard of that before. Like, most times that's just something that's like an effect, but no, there's really no effects there, and I really do love that. I think it's just a very cool aesthetic overall. I thought the film it looks really weird, and I really did love it, especially in the third act of the film. Just some imagery in this film is going to stick with me for a very long time. It's definitely something that I really do want to talk about. And it's a film that's going to, I think, warrant a lot of conversation. I think that's a good thing. I think, when a film can promote conversation and get you to try to come to a consensus about what it was really about and things like that, I think those really are the best films out there, and I think this film does that very well. I really love the score in this movie as well. It's very urban, and it's got this very interesting feel to it that I really did love. And the editing, the pacing for me, honestly, I never really felt it. The film really did fly by. When it was over, I was honestly shocked that it was over, and I think it was very well done. Also, a lot of people are talking about the ending. To me, I personally really loved the ending. I think the ending was very well done, and I really wouldn't have changed anything. Now, once again, it should be noted that this film definitely has 2 very different halves. Now, most films do have 3 acts, but this film does undergo a significant shift once Armie Hammer's character shows up, and that section of the film is likely going to divide a lot of people, and this is really nothing new. Both of the films I just mentioned were also very divided. Even though people really like them, there is quite a few that either they didn't like or they absolutely despised it. I can think of quite a few people right off the top of my head, and that's very much going to be the same here. It's just this film really revved up the weirdness and the sheer absurdity of it all in a way that worked for me, but I can totally understand if it didn't work for some, because I totally get what they're trying to say, but if someone else didn't, I totally get it. It's one of those things where you either go with it or you don't. I personally went with it. I thought it was a really cool idea, but if you didn't, I can completely understand that, and just be prepared because it really does get quite fucked up very fast. Now, I'd really love to jump into spoilers right now, guys. I would. I did it with Brigsby Bear. I did it with Swiss Army Man. However, unlike the Brigsby Bear, I had a lot more things to talk about with this movie that I can talk about without spoilers. That being said, though, so much goes down in that third act that I really want to talk about it in a separate video, and so definitely, you know, I will talk about spoilers at some point. I'm going to be talking about it with my friend Adam Haskell. He loves both Swiss Army Man and Brigsby Bear, and we will be doing a spoiler video at some point, so definitely look forward to that. Overall, guys, Sorry to Bother You is the kind of movie that I really do love. It is wholly original, it's so audacious and out there, but it also has some very relevant social commentary on some issues that I think kind of aren't really recognized, like the real problems going on in the workplace, and a little bit of racism in there, kind of, you know, it's about capitalism, it's about the dichotomy between workers and bosses and the different attitudes that they really do have. I mean, there's a lot of things that this film really does have to say that I really do love. So yeah, this film really did deliver for me. Is it as masterful as Brigsby Bear or Swiss Army Man? No, but I do think on a rewatch that could possibly change, and I do think Boots Riley has already solidified himself as one of the masters working today. I can't wait to see what he does next because he really impressed me here. It has standout performances from Lakeith, Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, and Armie Hammer. I think really those three are the standouts here. It has some stuff that I think is really going to stick with you forever and things that you really are not going to forget, and just overall did pretty much everything I really wanted it to do. It's not the film I was expecting. It's definitely not what you're going to expect at all. This is a film that go into it as blind as you possibly can because those trailers did a fantastic job of really hiding what this film is about, and I really can't wait to get into it in my spoiler review. But either way, guys, I absolutely love this film. This is definitely one of the best films I have seen all year, and I'm definitely going to give Sorry to Bother You overall an A. But over, guys, in my review of Sorry to Bother You, let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall, their thoughts on it. Like I said, I really want to talk about this movie with you guys. This is a film that, like I said, it's really going to start a lot of conversation, and I really do love it when films do that, and I'd love to hear, you know, if you guys have seen it, I'd really love to hear your take on it, definitely, because there's a lot of different ways to interpret this film, and that's something I really do want to talk about. You know, definitely private message me or whatever, and, you know, we'll talk about it. But that's it for this video. Hope you enjoy. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.